This video is going to clear up any confusion that you might have about boundaries. If you're confused about boundaries, here are the top 10 tips about boundaries. The number one thing to remember about setting boundaries, it starts with you. If you've never set a boundary with someone before, set one with yourself. I will go to bed at 10 p.m. every night. You understand that boundaries are the highest form of self-care. So if I'm not setting boundaries with myself, I'm not practicing self-care. So I need to understand that sleep is really important, and I'm going to make sure that I go to bed at 10 p.m. And if I'm still up at midnight, then I know I've broken that boundary with myself. Saying to yourself, I will not reply to emails on the weekend. Because not replying to emails is a form of self-care. And I know sometimes we think that things need attention right then and there, but so do you. So do you need attention. And so boundaries is about paying attention to yourself on purpose, having the intention to pay attention. Another boundary you can set with yourself is not speaking negatively towards yourself. Okay, all right, that's a little harsh. We don't need to say that. That's actually not true. Okay, just like you would to your friend, to your child. Give them compassion. Okay, so this is what you do. And so you set a boundary for yourself, but I'm not going to get sucked into that negative self-talk. It's okay for a second or two, but I'm not going to let it ruin my day. I will say yes to the things that bring me joy. I will say no to the things that drain my energy. Boundaries are about what you're going to do because you're the only person that you have control over. Boundaries are about self-control, how you control your emotions, how you control your responses, and how you are in control of your own thoughts instead of letting your thoughts rule you. That's a lot to digest. There's a lot of layers to taking personal responsibility for yourself. And there's a lot of reasons why people struggle with that. Knowing the difference between what's your responsibility and what isn't. All right, let's move on because I feel like I could get really caught up in that, in that personal responsibility topic. Okay, number 2, boundaries are about the standards that you set for yourself. So this is where we need to have a firm but fair approach, right? Many of us are going to wind up in toxic workplaces, toxic relationships, because we don't set our standard for how we want to be treated from the onset. When people have low self-worth, they have low standards. They have low standards in the people that they'll spend time with. They'll have low standards in the way people treat them. They'll have low standards in the workplace. And maybe they'll just go around bitching about it, but they don't do anything about it. Boundaries are about self-respect. Boundaries are about teaching other people how you like to be treated. Those are your standards. All right, number 3, boundaries are about building bridges, not walls. To build connections. They're here to let other people know this is my preference. This is how I feel most comfortable in the world so that we can feel most comfortable together, right? And I expect that that other person is also going to be letting me know that the conditions under which allow them to feel at their best, to feel most comfortable. So we can both bridge together. We can both have a connection and a level of understanding. Healthy boundaries equal healthy relationships. Because remember, no one can read your mind. I haven't been talking to him all day. He must know that something is up. He must know that I'm pissed off. He must know that what he did was not okay. No, don't play that kind of game. When you are making assumptions that other people should just know what it is you need, you're putting up a wall. We want to be able to communicate what our needs are. And that for a lot of people is like the first step. Okay, well, what are my needs? Which is why we go back to number 1, boundaries start with you. What are my needs? Number 4 is sometimes we do need to set rigid boundaries or put up walls with people who are toxic and unhealthy. So when you didn't have healthy boundaries to begin with, that meant that you allowed many people into your life who benefited from that. You were always the person in the losing position. That's how it kind of feels after a while. Now it's time to reclaim your power. Finally, no longer enabling their toxic behavior. When you stop enabling someone, you are role modeling personal responsibility. And you're letting them know I'm not responsible for your behavior. nor do I have to tolerate your behavior. This is good for them whether they realize it or not. Because the longer we continue to tolerate toxic, unhealthy behaviors or comments, the more we send a message to them that this behavior is acceptable. And then they do it to other people. And these other people that don't have very strong boundaries allow it to continue. Number 5, when you start to set standards, and you start to take responsibility for yourself, and you start to communicate yourself, you start to stand up for yourself, people are going to be taken aback. People are going to be like, oh, well, aren't you just Miss Bitch now? Oh, well, aren't you just selfish? So they're seeing like this stark contrast in you from somebody who had no standards, no boundaries, just let everybody do whatever the heck they were going to do, and you never spoke up, to now you're starting to speak up. Remember, those are the people who benefited from you not having boundaries. They love that about you. Now that you're coming to the forefront with this new approach, there's going to be pushback. And there's some that are going to push back in a natural way, because what they're seeing is like, oh, what's happening here? Something's different. Is this good? Is this not so good? I don't know how I'm supposed to take this. Did I do something wrong? Is this about me? Because a lot of people are going to take things personally. But it's just simply you trying to build a bridge. Are they willing to help you construct this bridge? Or are they tearing your bridge down? They're like, what the hell are you doing here? What are you trying to build? You're not going to start counting yourself. You're not going to start considering your needs. No. What does that mean for me? Does that mean you don't care about my needs? You need to really normalize this. This needs to be normalized. Someone might invite me to their house, and maybe I've told them that, I'm sorry, I can't hang out there because they're a smoker and they smoke in their house and the whole house smells of smoke. And so I have a need, a sensory need, to not smell smoke and to not smell of smoke. I want to find out, how can I build a bridge to them? How can I see them, but not in their house that smells like smoke? And that's realistic, right? Like, I'm not saying I don't want to see you. I just don't want to be around the smell of smoke. If you have allergies, right? I'm sorry, you have those cats there, and every time I go over to your place, it just stirs up my allergies. Well, just take, the allergy pill and you'll be fine. It's like, yeah, but I don't want to always take that allergy pill. Let's go and meet at, a coffee shop instead. Or, hey, you come over to my place. Or why don't we sit out in the back in your gorgeous backyard that you have? There's always these workarounds, but I think sometimes people are just way too rigid and they're way too stuck in their ways and they take things way too personally. And I don't want to build a wall between us because of this. I'm trying to build a bridge. I'm trying to find out, what are some other ways that we can hang out? What are some other ways that we can spend time together? I need you to consider some other times when pushback is going to come to the surface. Like, if you always were the person to drive them somewhere, and then one day you say, you know what, I can't do the driving all the time anymore. And now it's giving you some resentment. Or maybe you're always the one who makes dinner, or you're always the one who pays for dinner. It's never reciprocated, or maybe they just didn't express gratitude, or maybe they did, but now you're starting to feel this imbalance. You're like, why did I say yes to that? Why have I don't want to do it anymore. You know what? Now I just don't want to. And that could just be another thing. You could have loved it for a long time. Could have loved always making dinner. You could have loved always being the driver. And now you're like, yeah, I don't like it so much anymore. And here's an example of where your needs might change. Just know that, when somebody might say this to you, that they don't want to do something anymore, it's very much like, oh, okay, it's run its course. I need to call it and say, okay, like, I'm giving this person an opportunity to build this bridge with me. They keep coming over and they keep ripping it up. They keep tearing it up. They keep being reckless with it. The bridge is not having a chance to establish itself. I can't even drive over this bridge yet. It's still under construction, right? Like, this bridge it's been under construction for a year. Like some roads that just have been under construction for so long, it slows things down. It holds people up. It makes people pissed off. It's going to make people take a different route. And so that's essentially what is going to happen here. I've been trying to build this bridge with you, but you've been delaying the construction. You've been delaying the completion of this project because I need you to build this bridge with me. Okay. I can't just build it myself. And so if you're not going to help me, then I'm not going to spend my time building this bridge with you anymore. Now I'm going to have to go somewhere else and build bridges with other people. People think that self-care is selfish, then so be it. You probably used to think self-care was selfish. Now you've come around. But remember, there were people who were benefiting from you thinking that self-care was selfish because they wanted you to be all about them. Okay, so the second that you start to take care of yourself, those people that benefited from you not taking care of yourself want to hold you up, want to hold you back from you being able to do that now. All right, number 6, how to deal with pushback. Go back to this bridge that's under construction. And what are we doing here? What are we doing? I keep repeating what my need is: to be spoken to in a kind and gentle way. I have a need to not be yelled at so that we can have a healthy relationship. What do you say? Can we work on that? Can we work on building that bridge together? If somebody wants to help you build that bridge, you're going to see signs of them participating in that process. The people who don't want to help you build that bridge, you're going to see them causing further destruction. And for every effort that you make, they're going to tear it down. And it's up to them if they want to participate. If they don't, it's fine. It's like, okay, cool. I'm not going to spend my energy building this bridge, one-sided bridge that's going to lead me to nowhere. So there needs to be consequences. You just continue with that because there's nothing more that really needs to be said. Number 7. This number 7 is something that comes up a lot. Whenever I talk about setting boundaries, there will always be a comment that will say, well, what if it's your boss? Well, what if it's my mom? What if it's my kid? Okay, it doesn't matter who you're setting boundaries with, because boundaries are not about anyone else but you. Okay, so if you're having difficulty setting boundaries with someone, chances are that this person doesn't respond to boundaries. There was somebody putting in an effort there, but the other person didn't want to make it work. Maybe a lot of unfinished bridges all over the place. Number 8, boundaries are about honoring your own specific and unique needs. So many of us have common needs. They need to be treated with respect. Well, it's also important to define what respect means to you, because within that definition, you're going to find further needs, like to be spoken to in a clear way. I'm somebody who's very literal. So I have a need to be spoken to in a simple, clear, matter-of-fact, non-sarcastic way. My responsibility to meet that need to be spoken to in a clear and assertive way. And so I may ask them to give me some clarification about what it is that they meant. What was underlying that? Can you give me some more information so that I don't make assumptions about what people need? We have needs to be validated instead of invalidated. We have needs to be supported instead of diminished. We have needs to be loved instead of hated. We have needs to feel safe instead of threatened. We have needs to be mentally stimulated instead of insulted. We have needs to have fun instead of being bored. We need to share. There's a need to share instead of taking. I didn't say the need to give. No, we're not going to be givers. We're going to share what we have. Okay, and we're going to share with people who receive it with love and gratitude and don't just take it with entitlement. We have a need to be understood instead of always being misunderstood, right? And so that need also applies to yourself. I need to start to understand myself instead of sitting with this constant state of misunderstanding about who I am. How about I learn about who I am? We have the need to be heard instead of ignored, right? That need to be understood, that need to be heard. Somebody is ignoring me and giving me the silent treatment. Hey, can we build the bridge toward being heard? I don't want to build the wall of silent treatment. I want to build the bridge of communication. I also have a need to relax and for quiet and for peace and calm. So I need to build that bridge with you. Is that a bridge I can build with you, or are you only the fun bridge? We have emotional needs. We have physical needs, the need to move our body. We have spiritual needs to connect to higher guidance, to source, to our intuition, to deeper meanings, mental needs to be mentally stimulated, to not get into guilting debates. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for that mental well-being, that mental abundance. And then our sensory needs also need to come into consideration. All right, 9 is boundaries are not to be used as a form of control. People might have unreasonable boundaries, unrealistic boundaries. And if your boundary is to control another person as a way to manipulate somebody, to do something for you, that's not a boundary. That's being controlling. If you're trying to force somebody to do something, you have to stop smoking in your house if you want me to come over. No, that's building a wall. That's being controlling. Smoke in your house as much as you want. I'm just not going to be there. And telling people, you can't treat me like that. You can't talk to me like that. You need to stop talking to me like that. The person can talk to you all they like, however, which way they like. But guess what? We won't have a relationship though, if it continues. Okay, that's your choice now. And that leads to number 10. There needs to be consequences. A boundary without a consequence is not a consequence. It's just a request. Your drinking and spending has to stop. Our bank account is going into overdraft. We can't pay our bills. Okay, I'll stop. And it continues. I'm going to have to get a second job because we can't afford all our bills because of your drinking and your overspending. There's no consequence. It's just telling the person what to do. You set a consequence, you have to stick to it. So if this continues, we're going to have to reevaluate this union, because this is me trying to build the bridge. Hey, I'm building the bridge towards having a healthy relationship, a responsible relationship with one another that feels safe, that feels secure. All right, so your drinking and spending has continued. It's time to reevaluate the relationship. And guess what? Drinking and overspending are highly addictive behaviors. And to expect that this person is going to change overnight is very unrealistic. So we might have to step back for a while that person does the work on themselves. Or in the workplace, where we set a consequence to ourselves. If that boss keeps talking to me like this, I'm going to have to find a new job. And so that's the consequence we tell to ourselves, right? Because remember, boundaries are about you. It's a consequence we tell ourselves. And then the boss keeps talking to us like this and we don't do anything. And we have this voice inside our heads like, how come you're not standing up for yourself? How come we're not looking for a new job yet? That's what we said we were going to do, but we're not doing it. We're just still hanging on. Now we're compromising ourselves. Now we actually don't have any boundary because we're allowing this behavior to continue. But this is also where you have to be true to your own being. If I said something, I need to make sure I do it, because setting boundaries is what builds confidence. And you're never going to have enough confidence that you think you need to set the boundary, because the way it works is that boundaries and setting standards for yourself is what builds your confidence. So the second that you actually set that boundary, you set that consequence, you stay true to that consequence, that gives you a sense of worth. That gives you a sense of I am standing up for myself. I'm doing things for myself. But these top 10 tips on setting boundaries are the essential pieces for you to then take a deeper look at yourself, start to understand what's holding me back from setting boundaries, what's holding me back from honoring and respecting myself, what's holding me back from understanding what my needs are so that I can communicate them, what's holding me back from being able to find people who can build bridges with me, what's holding me back from wanting to build bridges, what is it that has me building walls all the time? Why do I have so many walls? Why do I have so few bridges? Think about that and what that means for you. Maybe there might be some clues hidden. I know I gave you tons of info, tons of thoughts, tons of tips. So I hope you can just take one of them and put them into action. Bye for now.